All right. Well, welcome to another episode in the Run Breiter Podcast. So excited to say this is episode number 17, and even more excited about the guests that we have on today. So we have Cynthia Wheeler, who is another person that I found from the TikTok community, the great running TikTok community. And, Cynthia's name on TikTok is the Runner Girl, which I'm going to have to ask how you got that, or it's just Runner Girl, that is, excuse me, I'm going to have to ask you how you got that, but we'll start with just a quick introduction. I think people would love to learn who you are, and we'll start, getting into it here today.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Cynthia. I don't have the handle Runner Girl. I just have that in my bio. Do you know what I'm saying? My handle is actually my name, Cynthia J. Wheeler.
I see the Runner Girl.
I know everyone calls me Runner Girl, and clearly I set my TikTok up wrong because I didn't get it as my handle. I have it as my name or something. I don't even know.
No worries.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't do any wizardry. I live in Chicago, and I have run, I think I've run like 10 or 11 marathons now. Currently training for the Chicago Marathon, which is coming up, and I'm nervous. What else do you need to know about me? I feel like I've been running forever now, but really I've only been running since I moved to the city, which was in college. And I love to run along the lakefront, and I love all things running. That's my daughter. You can hear her in the background.
That's all good. Yeah, no, and we love connecting with as many runners as we can, and really love the fact that you've been running for so long and the passion that you have and all the races that you've done. I guess we'll start off with what really led you to getting into running in the first place.
Actually, I played tennis in college, and running was a way to stay in shape for tennis. And then I moved to the city after college. Well, my senior year, I graduated from a college in Chicago. And I kind of stopped playing tennis, but kept the running because I liked staying in shape. I felt like after tennis, I kind of became lazy. And Chicago was just so great because the lakefront is like the whole you can run 20 miles. Do you know what I mean? And not do a loop, or not go out and back 4 times. Right. So the lakefront is made for running. And I've never looked back, never left the lakefront, and keep on running it.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's the great part of running in big cities is that you have those amazing views. And like you said, you don't have to do a small loop and turn around every time. And do you ever though, do the fact that you're running in that probably similar areas in Chicago ever get sick of it? Or have you ventured to other trails outside of lakefront that's in Chicago?
I've done both. I ran with a run group once, and they went up to a place called Barrington Hills, which it was a group of people that were training for Boston. At that time, I was not training for Boston, but the hills up north in Barrington are similar to the hills in Boston. The hills in Boston are like nothing I've ever seen, but I've run up there, and they have a 20-mile course up there that's insane. And then there's a place, there's like a path, a wooded path called Waterfall Glen. And I feel like that's a 10-mile run for Waterfall Glen. I've done that. And that is a crazy, it's like, I don't know what that is, an Escher painting. You know what I mean? I felt like and it's a loop. How is it that I did this loop and was going uphill the whole time? That's not possible, right? So I've run Waterfall Glen, and I swear it's like somewhere in the twilight zone where even though it's a loop, you're always running up. Seems unfair.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I've actually I've been to Chicago for 20 minutes in a layover on a flight, and I'd never actually spent time there. But knowing that there's so many great places to run, as well as the Chicago Marathon is a race I'm definitely interested in.
You have to do the Chicago Marathon.
And you're training for it right now, right?
Yes, there's nothing like it. I feel bad that I want to say this is my 5th Chicago Marathon. It's harder to get in now than it was back in the day, but it is like nothing you'll ever see. The crowds are amazing. I was just talking to my run group on a Zoom yesterday, and they were prepping us. Everybody in this group is running Chicago. And she's like, The first 3 miles, do not put your headphones in because you will never hear anything like that crowd. Because you start right downtown in Grant Park, and it's insane. Like you go under the bridge is packed with people. It's crazy. And they're like, don't go out too fast, giving us all the tips. But you go through every neighborhood in the city. It's a beautiful course. It's flat, which is insane because it's hard to find a marathon course that's actually flat. I can't say enough about it. It's a great way to see the city. It's a top-notch race, and there are world-class runners in it. So it's very exciting.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you have to compare to it though? Because I know you've done it 5 times, but it sounds like you've done what you said, like 11 or 12 marathons at this point.
Yeah, I ran the LA marathon so hard.
That hilly
So
or
hot. Well, when I ran, and my understanding is that LA changes their course quite a bit. So I don't know if they've landed on a course, but the course when I ran it, the last 4 miles were uphill. I was like, that's just mean. Can we just reverse that? You know what I mean? Like, we do the first 4 miles downhill and go the other way. And I've done the St. George Marathon, which, oh my Lord, that was I hit St. George. St. George is a point-to-point downhill, but you do a lot of uphills in the downhill, and when I did St. George, it was like 45 degrees. It's a point-to-point, and I had driving rain in my face the entire 26.2 miles. Like, I sometimes think about that marathon and think I should have stopped, but you couldn't stop. Like, how do you stop at a point-to-point, right? And it's one road. And I remember when I was running it, I saw helicopters coming up and down. I was like, oh, that's nice. They're cheering people on. No, they're airlifting people out who were dropping on the course because they had, they had hypothermia. So yay. That was not a good one. I did the Miami Marathon. That's a great course. I'm
doing that in January, actually.
Are you?
Yeah. With a couple.
Wow.
Actually, I'm really excited.
It's a great expo. I really enjoyed it. It's hard. Where are you training?
So I'm in New York City.
Oh, okay.
But it was a good, I have family in Florida. So it was a good excuse to go down to Florida, see family, run the marathon, and then, celebrate the victory.
It's a well-run marathon. The only thing I didn't like was I don't like training cold and running hot.
That's fair.
That's tough to do. You know what I mean? But I really did love them, and their medal is fantastic. I'm a medal junkie, and Miami has a great medal, so you'll get a good one.
Cool.
I'm trying to think. Boston, duh. I ran Boston in April.
That's awesome.
Which is like,
nice.
It's like the church of running in Boston. Like, I've never seen anything like it. It has, like, going to Boston and seeing how that town shows up for the expo and for the whole race experience, and the finish line is bonkers. Like, it's like you're in the Olympics or something, it was amazing. So I can't say enough about Boston.
Which one do you prefer?
That is a tough question.
Putting you on the spot here.
Oh, wow. It's funny because I was just talking about it with my run group, and they're like, the crowds in Chicago are like nothing you've ever seen. I feel like the crowds in Boston might have eked them out. You know what I mean? Just a little bit, because Boston, the crowd never stops.
Okay.
You know what I mean? There are places along Chicago where you hit a neighborhood where it's like, for a little while, you might not see anyone. But in Boston, it never stopped. It was just a sea of people the whole entire way.
That's amazing.
They're both amazing races, though.
Yeah, I'd like to do both for sure. I'm curious too. I mean, and I love the story that you went from playing competitive tennis into running. I feel like we hear that so many times, people who were athletes in their youth go into running, really, because one, there's the fact that you don't need to play with anyone. You just do it on your own. I mean, there's a lot of groups and whatnot, but it can be a very individual sport, which is nice. And then I just think it's like a natural transition for the body as you get older to just do something like running. But what has kept you motivated? Obviously, it sounds like you've been running since college to continue running. What are some of your favorite parts about running? I'd love to hear about that.
That's an interesting question. Before I got the nod for Boston, I was trying to break a 2-hour half because I'm fast is a relative term, and I never have considered myself fast. You know what I mean? But I thought that's a good goal. You know what I mean? So let's try to do that. But what I find is, and as we all get older, I have a friend. It's the friend who I ran the Miami Marathon with. We're like, if you stop, you get old. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you stop, you get old. But if you keep moving, your body stays in pretty good shape. You know what I mean? So I feel like I'm outrunning the aging process at this point. Does that sound ridiculous?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think a lot of people, and listen, I'm about to be 26 here in a little bit. I'm a young.
Oh, you're so young. Come on.
But I have friends who aren't as active as I am. And I'm starting to see like they're aging quicker than I am, I feel like. And maybe that's just mental on my end, but I truly think running keeps you old mentally, physically, all of the above. I'm sure you can agree with that.
Yeah, I run and I strength train, and I love strength training too. And I like strength training with running. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it just makes me feel stronger all around. And also, I've become addicted to like the whole run community that's online. Like, I feel like if I stopped running, would I lose that connection? Like, I don't want to lose that connection, right? It's weird and funny, and it's fun to watch all of the people, both in Chicago and all over the world, who are training for the same race I'm training for. You know what I mean? Like, that's super cool, and you're part of a community that all have the same interest as I do. So
yeah, no, I love that. And on the strength training piece of things, I think that's super important for me. I'm going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. And even if I'm doing just light lifting, I think it's really important for injury prevention. And I think it's just a nice thing to have as well. But I'd love to know from your experience, because I think there's some runners out there that feel like, oh, maybe I should just run, or strength train people who do strength training and feel like they should just strength train. And I know you're not necessarily, you mentioned this earlier, you're not like a coach, but I think it's good to hear from different people's experiences and what works for them. What's your strength training routine that you have with running? Because I think the balance is tough for a lot of people. And I think,
yeah, it is. And I want to add another strength training day to my routine, and I haven't been able to do it, but that's because I run every other day, and then I strength train every other day. But I feel like there's a day in there where I should probably double up strength training and running, and I haven't done that. I'm never not training core. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like core is so important. So pre-pandemic, I used to go to the health club. During the pandemic, I feel like health clubs had a really tough time because no one could go in, and some health clubs were like charging your membership even though you couldn't go in. And so I let go of the health club and I started trying apps, you know what I mean? And I bought weights. So now I have all the weights in my house, and I use, I'll just say it, I use the Peloton app, and I absolutely am obsessed with it.
I have heard great things. I personally don't have it, but everyone who I know uses it, loves it.
My daughter's like, "You've joined a cult." And I'm like, "I have not joined a cult." She's yelling now, "Cult." I have not joined a cult, but I am obsessed with it. And their strength training is fabulous. And they have strength training for runners, which I love. But I find that on my strength training days, I always train core, but then I also do a lot of upper body. And I try to lift heavy. You know what I mean? Like, I hear women say, "Oh, I don't want to build muscle mass." I'm like, bring it on. Bring it on. Like, I'll lift heavy and I go for it. And I like it. I do the lunges and stuff like that as well. But sometimes, like, especially now when I ran 18 miles on Saturday, like, that's a long one. That takes it out on your legs. So when I hit strength training, I'm like, let's just do upper body and core. We're going to give the legs a break, you know?
Makes sense. Makes sense. I guess on the flip side of things, I mean, awesome on that 18-mile run. Obviously, you ran a lot of marathons and you're training for one right now. You mentioned you run every other day, but what is your, a typical week of running in those 3 or 4 days in which you're running? What are your typical runs look like?
Right now, it's hard, and we're heading into the 20-miler, but like this week, I did 4 miles on Monday. I did 8.5 speed training workout on Wednesday, which those Wednesday workouts are really starting to kill me because the mileage is going up on the Wednesdays. And it's like, oh man, got to get up in the morning, hit that path and hit your speed for like 2 miles and then take a half mile, slow down, and then another 2 miles, hit your speed. Those are hard. And then I'll do 5 miles I think I have 6 miles on Friday. And then it's a cutback week. So I have just 12 miles on Saturday. So I feel like Saturday's the cutback, and then I might have 20 the following week. I got to look that up, but the 20 milers coming up. So right now the miles are high.
Mm-hmm. So in your peak of training, what's like the maximum mileage you put in a week? Because I think with marathons, there's so many different ranges of people that I see with how many miles they put in a week.
Yeah.
People run 30 at most and they do the race, and then I see people at over 100. So
I know I see people who do like 22 milers and stuff like that. I never go over 20.
Okay.
But I mean a 20-mile run, do you know what I'm saying? But what I was going to say is the other thing that's hit my radar recently, and I don't really know what to do with it. I've seen people who train by time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they'll train for a marathon, but they won't do more than a 3-hour run or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know how that works. I don't buy into that, but I know people who do. And so I don't know what the answer is there. As far as me, I have a program that I follow, and it runs through the Training Peaks app, which I think a lot of run groups use that app. Mm-hmm. And my coach just plugs in what I'm supposed to do, and I do it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the method to the madness is of what you're supposed to run. I just know when I see 8.5, I'm going 8.5,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And when my first marathon, which seems like a million years ago now, I did the Hal Higdon program. I thought that was a great program for beginner runners. So I really liked that one.
Awesome. Love that. Love that. One thing I do also want to talk about, because I know that you mentioned one of the things that you love so much about running is that community aspect of it, which is, awesome. And I'm starting to feel that more and more, the more I've been on social, but also living in New York City and going to different running clubs and stuff like that. What would you say is, what does your running community look like? What's the importance of that to you, and what areas are you associated with the running community?
First off, I do want to ask you about the New York City Marathon, but I'll put a pin in that.
Okay.
New York is a city I've seen that marathon and been a spectator at that marathon, but I've never run it. And that's on my bucket list. But anyways, the run community in Chicago, I'm not running with a Chicago group right now, but the run community in Chicago is so amazing. There's the CES, which is Chicago Endurance Sports, and they have a run program, and they're all over the lakefront. And then there's Fleet Feet, which is a running store that I think is a nationwide chain.
Yeah, we have that.
Mm-hmm. They and CARA, the Chicago Area Runners Association, they set up aid stations all along the lakefront. So it doesn't matter if you're running with CARA or if you're running with CES or if you're a Fleet Feet runner or who you are. Like, everybody knows that's training for Chicago where those aid stations are. And I see people who I know from TikTok at the aid station who are training. I see people that I know from Instagram. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I had someone at the aid station last week. Someone did this to me. You know what I mean? Poked me, and I turned around. I had no idea who she was. She's like, "I love your TikTok. I love your TikTok." And I'm like, "Thank you. That's very kind of you." You know what I mean? And I always tell them to drop a comment so I can make sure I'm following them back, because I never know who I'm following and if I'm following the right person back. But if someone's following me, I always follow runners. So if a runner comments, I'll go back to their feed and follow them back. So, but my point is, there is a huge community of runners going back and forth on the lakefront on the weekends. And it doesn't matter if you're with a group or not, you're going to see someone you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That. And yeah, I mean, on that topic of TikTok and Instagram and all the different social communities out there, obviously you are in that content creation space. That's how I found you, which it's so awesome that we have this, because you and I probably would never talk without it unless I ran past you at the Chicago Marathon one day. But what made you want to step into this content creation game? Because there's a lot of runners out there, but not everyone creates content with it.
Yeah. It's funny. Wow. Okay. My content creation journey is a long one, and it starts with a blog. Like, I was a blogger a million years ago when blogging first started. There was a blog conference at Navy Pier, and I said to my husband, I'm thinking about going to check this out. And he's like, go figure it out. You know what I mean? And so I had a blog. It was not about running. It was about raising little kids in the city. You know what I mean? And then somewhere along the line of blogging, this whole micro blogging cropped up, and it started, I want to say, with Twitter more than even Facebook. Like, Twitter came along and people were like, what is that? You know? And then I swear I was on Instagram right at the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
It was a micro thing. You know what I mean? And it wasn't run content. Like, it was more like doing kid things in the city kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And then as I started running more, and as the kids started getting older and having no interest in being any part of my content, you know what I mean? They were like, I don't want to be on your Instagram feed. I don't, you know, it became more run content and less kid content. And we had a winter in Chicago where everything froze. And it was the kind of frozen, I've never seen it again like this, but like the lake would wash up and these mounds of snow would freeze. And if you look, you'd have to go way back in my Instagram feed, but there were these, I run no matter how cold it is. Like, I ran in the 50 below weather. Like, I take it as a challenge and I do it. It may be only a mile, you know what I mean? But I go out. That's awesome. I go out. And I remember on the 50 below day, I was like, I got to the lakefront and I was like, this probably isn't very smart. And I turned around and I went home. It's probably dangerous.
Treadmill.
Yeah, it's probably dangerous. I'm gonna go home. But anyways, I had all these ridiculous pictures, and the North Face reached out and they're like, we love what you're doing. We want you to be an ambassador. It was when ambassador programs first started. And so they just sent swag to people, like mountain climbers, urban runners, just, you know, they selected a group of people. And that was kind of how the whole running Instagram content creation thing started, was because the North Face noticed my crazy running in the super cold Siberia weather, you know, and it never stopped. So.
Yeah. I mean, I love that topic of running in the cold. I mean, being that you live in Chicago, I'm sure there's some tough winters just like here in New York City. And I think a lot of people that I speak to who might be people who like have trouble committing to running, or they want to get into running, but they're like, oh, well, when it gets cold, I'm going to stop. I mean, what advice do you have for those people to really just like push themselves to get out there? Because I think once you get out there and you get a mile or two in, you could probably speak to this, you get used to it pretty quick and you start feeling fine. And I really enjoy those runs personally. But I'd love to.
Oh, I totally agree.
And your advice on that too.
And that's an easy one too. It literally, it all comes down to having the right gear. Like, if you have the right gear, it's not a big deal. It's really not. You know what I mean? I was a skier before I was a winter runner. I always skied and I loved it. And skiing also comes down to, you have to have the right gear or you freeze your tail off, you know?
Yeah.
So I have a really, really good run jacket for cold weather. It's light, it's breathable, but it's windproof, which is key. And you have to wear a neck gaiter. Like, people miss, you have to cover your head. You know, it's like, and if you need a good pair of gloves or else your fingers freeze. But if it's windproof and if it's warm enough, I don't know why you wouldn't go out. That's kind of the way I've always played it. I got a jacket this year from, and I'm going to say this wrong, Arc'teryx. Have you heard of them?
I haven't, honestly. No, Arc'teryx.
Arc'teryx, Arcterx, I think is what it is. Anyways, that jacket is so thin and lightweight, and it is so warm, it's ridiculous. So, it can be 20 below. I'll throw that jacket on and be fine. So,
yeah, I'm seeing it now. Looks a little pricey, but I'm sure it's high quality stuff.
That's what I was going to say. And the other thing about that Arc'teryx, which I noticed, is they'll like refill it. I think the North Face does that too. Like if your jacket runs out of puff, they'll refill it, and I'm like, it's the kind of thing that I think it probably lasts you 10, 15 years. But yeah, it's not cheap, but it is the warmest, lightest weight jacket that I've ever had. And if it's cold, that's the one I grab. Because I'm addicted to running clothes and active wear and gear. And I have way too many of everything. And my daughter will totally back me up on that because she's like, you have a problem. But that's the jacket I reach for when it's cold.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm really big recently, and I wasn't like this when I was younger, but I think you're just better off buying like a few high quality products that are going to work compared to stuff that you're going to sell every couple of years, unless you're going through like a major weight loss journey. But I do love the topic of running gear. Because I think there's so much fun stuff out there. There's so many cool brands. And as I've been going through this journey, I wouldn't have seen this unless I was running. So I'd be really curious from your end. I mean, what are some of your favorite running gear that you have?
It's funny because someone else asked me this on TikTok today. Oh, I commented on somebody. So people with their, and I haven't, because I just bought another pair, people with their unboxing of their run shoes. I'm addicted to running shoes. Running shoes they're pretty. They have great colors. Like I love them, but I run in the Brooks Ghost. Like that is my go-to shoe. I love the Brooks Ghost. But the Hokas, the Brooks Ghosts are fantastic. I love them. It's a great shoe. It's a solid shoe. But Hokas, oh my God. It's like candy. Their colors are beautiful. Like I go into the run store and I'm like, I must touch all the Hokas. And then Saucony, their colors are fantastic. Like,
yeah,
bring me all the running shoes. I want them all. I'm only going to run in the Brooks, but I want them all. I've seen, have you heard of a runner? He's both on TikTok and Instagram, but I think he's more on Instagram than TikTok. And I'm going to say it wrong. Kofuzi. Have you heard of him? Kofuzi.
I'm not fully sure. Possibly. I probably have seen some of his content.
He's really good at, he's like got all of the cool cameras, the gimbals and stuff, but he reviews running shoes. So he has every running shoe under the sun. And I'm like, in my next life, that's what I want. I want that. I want all the run shoes.
Yeah. I'm curious with these Brooks because I have a pair of Hokas right now, the Rincon 3s that I've been using for my long runs. I also got like a pair of Nikes, the Vaporflies that I use for my race.
Oh, those are cool. I've never run in those though.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet. I mean, they're different though. It's very, very light, very tight, but like they're very fast.
Yeah.
Tell me about these Brooks. Are those the only shoes you use both for long runs and races, or do you have like a different pair that you use for races?
It's funny because I feel like the script has changed on this shoe. The shoes for races versus shoes you train in, and it's with that Nike, I think. Like, I feel like now people have their race shoes and they have their training shoes, and their race shoes are literally only for the race because they don't really last as long as your training shoes do. I have freakishly high arches. Like I say, I have Martian feet. Like if I walk on the sand, the balls of my feet will make a print and my heel will make a print, and there's nothing in between. Like my arches don't touch. So I have to buy a special insole that like gives that support, or else my arches like hurt, Mm-hmm. So I have a special insole and I put it in that Brooks and it just fits my feet perfect. I really don't have a blister issue. I don't have any movement issues. I have a very narrow foot with a high arch, and that works really well for me. So I find it hard to find something that works well. So I've just stuck with it. I've
Don't fix
heard,
something that doesn't, don't change
yeah,
something that's not broken, right?
exactly. And I've heard that Brooks might be changing the Ghost with the 15, because I ran in the 12, then the 13, then the 14, and I'm in the 14 now. And I hear the 15 might change, and I'm a little nervous about that, you know?
You can always probably stock up on the older pairs if you did.
That's the thing. When the 15 comes out, I may just buy all the 14s,
I'll take 10
depending on what that 15 does. But if I did have to switch, I gotta say those Sauconys are pretty sweet shoes. Everyone's buying their Sauconys. I'm like, oh my God, they're so cool.
Saucony also, I like them a lot. I did have like the endorphin speed 2s for a bit. I'm like debating going back to those. I don't know, but I love the topic of shoes, so I'm glad you enjoy that topic too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know we were talking a bit about the content creation stuff, and I feel like we got into the shoes in the middle of it and whatnot. But so obviously, like now, you mentioned your blog in the past, Twitter, that you've got jumped on there, and then you were one of the first people on Instagram, and that led you to doing some work with North Face, becoming an ambassador, which is really cool. Now you're obviously on TikTok too, doing really well. You have an awesome following, which is great. What really motivates you to make the consistent content that you're doing on TikTok at this point?
It's funny because I was kind of puttering out on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like Instagram had hit a place where no one was seeing growth anymore, and people were a little bit frustrated with how perfect that content had to be. You know what I mean? Like Instagram, somewhere along the line, turned into like this whole curated feed lookbook kind of thing. And it was a lot. It took a lot of effort to create that content. And I feel like when TikTok came along, it was like a breath of fresh air. Like you didn't have to sweat that feature image, because you couldn't set a feature image. You know what I'm saying? Like you could set it was part of the video. You know what I mean? So you weren't shooting stills as well as shooting video. And the fact that it was fully a video content platform I had to learn how to edit video. And now I love editing video. And I didn't know how to edit video prior to TikTok. So I like editing video. I like thinking about different ways to tell a story. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll just shoot, and I only shoot on my phone. I always look at getting those other cameras. And I haven't yet, like those little tiny
thing.
I want it, but then I'm like, that's just another thing to carry. It's hard, right? Mm-hmm. But like I'll shoot 7 seconds of me running on the path and then put words over it, or I'll, shoot different things I see myself, my feet, and then I'll do a voiceover. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many different ways to talk and tell your little 7 to 15 second story. And then I edit in CapCut. I'm obsessed with CapCut. Like I love putting B-roll in and sticking different audios in. And, you're basically, I don't know, Spielberg, right? I'm making Jaws every day. I don't know. But it's amazing to me how powerful your phone has become,
It really has been. I mean, there's so much influence there. And I really like what you're saying in the sense that you can tell the same story in so many different ways. And obviously you're not telling just one story. You're probably telling a lot of them, but it all comes down to one thing, one passion you really enjoy, and different ways in which you're creating content are going to stick with different people. But, I'm sure you've inspired countless people to start running, to continue running, to grow with running at a level they may have never thought they had the ability to do, which is why I love doing it. And I'm sure that's one of the big reasons as well.
It's funny because every once in a while I get a DM and they're like, I wasn't going to go out today, and then I saw your post. You know what I mean? Because if I'm one thing, I'm consistent. You know what I mean? Like it's really got to be something to stop me from getting out. So yeah, it boggles my mind that, you can inspire people, but you do. Like you said, you talked to Jocelyn, like she's a beast. She inspires me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, good God, maybe someday when I grow up, I'll be as good as her. You know what I mean? It's like, but there are amazing people on the platform just doing things. Like I watch a couple in Ireland, and they're coming to Chicago. Um, and they are so fast and so amazing. And it's like, I'm sorry, I'm talking to people in Ireland, that's crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what the community is on TikTok. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, very diverse community. I was like looking at some of the analytics on my following, and I'm sure you probably have looked at this before. And it's like 70% of the people that follow me are from America, and it's like, wow, like 30% of people aren't even from this country, and it's like,
I know.
wonder who
It's
these
crazy.
people are on a personal level. You can't meet everyone in person, but you can try.
Yeah. No, I'm going to try to meet those Ireland people. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
cool. Who knows if I will. I mean, good God, the Chicago Expo is massive, but I'm looking for you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, I guess like with your personal brand that you have, do you have any like big goals with it? I mean, and I don't fully know like everything that you do with it, of course, but like, I don't know if for you, like you're monetizing certain areas, or if you're trying to, or if it's just like something that you find fulfillment with and it's just about doing something you enjoy. I think everyone has different goals and inspiration.
I think of it as a side hustle. You know what I'm saying? I have a 9 to 5 job. I get to work from home, so that makes it easier to create content in the spaces in between. But what I've found, I'm finishing up a program. I hope I'm allowed to talk about it. With TikTok. Uh, they're launching their TikTok creator marketplace, and it is pretty sharp. Like you can literally just in the app find campaigns and find people to work with and make money. I think it's interesting how these platforms, and I know Instagram is following suit, but I don't think they're as far along the path as TikTok is.
Mhm.
But I think it's great that people can monetize their hobby. So I always look at money I make from TikTok and from Instagram as play money. You know what I mean? Like I can use that money and invest it back into the hobby, whether it's buying the running shoes or whether it's, getting a run jacket that costs a fortune.
Doing a race.
Yeah, doing a race, all the things, because it's the side hustle, but it does pay for itself. So, you know, and I mean, the dream, because North Face closed their ambassador program many, many years ago. I feel like when people first dabbled in those programs, they didn't know what their ROI was going to be. So they didn't get enough out of it because they didn't really know what they wanted it to be. I feel like ambassador programs now are much more savvy.
Yeah.
Not that the North Face isn't savvy, they're fabulous. And maybe they have an ambassador program now, but the one I was in, they don't have anymore.
They were early.
Yeah. Yeah, they were early on. But like, any of these, like a Brooks ambassador, like I saw those people doing their thing recently, and I'm like, well, that's cool. I will do that. Or, race ambassadors, I will do that. It just comes down to who do you want to work for? Who do you want to work with?
Yeah.
And I feel like brands are reaching out. Like there's a lot of opportunity to match up with things that make sense.
Yeah. I mean, brands want their products to see attention. And if people like you are making great content and you're getting a lot of attention, then they'll naturally want to work with you, which I think is really cool.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I'm sure you'll continue to crush it, which is awesome. But I think it's really inspiring. I mean, I think for a long time, like we didn't live in a world where you could easily monetize, and I'm not saying it's easy to do it, but like easy to get started on a project towards monetizing your passion. But now I think there's a lot more structure to that compared to 5, 10, 20 years ago, which is awesome. And so whether it's running or something else, I mean, I think that's, people are living in a great world for that. And I'm sure you could agree there.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, Cynthia, this has been awesome. Is there anything else you think you'd like to bring up or talk about that you think the viewers would find value of? I mean, I think we've learned a lot. I mean, learning about all your running experiences, learning about running in Chicago, your, content creation journey is really great. And I've had so much fun speaking to you. Is there any final notes that you'd like the viewers to hear about here?
I want to ask you about New York. Have you run the New York Marathon or even the New York Half? Like, I want to do a big race in New York City, and I haven't. I've been to New York City. Like, New York City is a great city. Give me the deets on New York.
So yeah, I'll give you the details. So I live in Manhattan, so I'm in Midtown West. So yeah,
That's the dream. That's the dream.
yeah.
Amazing.
I was talking to one of my friends about it. I love living here and I hate living here. It really depends on the day. I have the best days of my life, and then I have days where I'm like, oh my God, it's so expensive and stressful.
Right. Don't you think that's city living though? I feel like, because I feel like I could say the same thing in Chicago, you know?
Yeah, if you're in one of the top 5 cities, that's a feeling you'll get. But I've definitely learned a lot living here. And with running, it's a great city to be in, no doubt. I haven't done the New York City Marathon yet, but I'm doing it in November. So that's my next marathon I'm training for. I'm really excited for it. I haven't done the New York half, but I've done the Brooklyn half. And
I watched that one. Yes.
yeah, that one was great. In New York City, I've heard great things about, but you'll be seeing some of the content, as I do the New York City one in November, and I'll of course reach out to you after and let you know how the experience goes. But I mean, I've ran pretty much everywhere in Manhattan, Central Park, the Hudson River. I mean, I haven't ran in Chicago, so I can't fully compare it to it, but it seems like there's a lot of parallels from what I've heard from other people and just from talking to you, as far as the energy, the amount of people who are out there and running each day, the fact that you could go around the city and run 20 miles without having to turn around, which is really great. I mean, yes, sometimes you got to deal with some traffic and whatnot, but you get around it. So, like I said, I'll let you know how New York City goes, but from what I've heard, it's a can't miss race. So hopefully
I know.
you'll be able to check it out.
I've been told it's harder than Boston because of the bridges. So I'll be curious to hear what you think on those bridges.
Silly from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But you have that same energy and feel. So we'll see. I'm trying to break 3 hours. So I got my finger.
Oh man, that's amazing.
We'll see what happens. I did a marathon 2 weeks ago that was in New York, but it was actually somewhat upstate New York by a lake. And I did 3 hours and 13 minutes, but I think I got a lot more to bring this time around. So we'll see how it goes. But
I'm nervous for you.
So hopefully I can qualify for Boston and Chicago and get those experiences just like you did.
Yeah, no. Do Boston if that arises, because that is an amazing race. But New York is my bucket list too. So I got to get to New York Marathon sometime.
Yeah. Do you know how to get in? I'm happy to tell you the ways. I mean,
No, I do not. So bring it.
So there's a couple different ways. There's the easiest way if you're in New York is, and which you're not, but I mean, this is an option if you want to guarantee yourself to be in. New York Roadrunners, they put on all these races all year round. So if you do 9 of their races, which they're all like $20-$30 races you could do, and then you volunteer at one event, you automatically get in. So that's one option. I'm doing that this year to make sure I'm in next year without having to worry about it. But this year I got in actually through the lottery, which for you would probably make the most sense.
Yeah.
I think there's like somewhere between like a 10 to 20% chance of getting in. I lucked out. I actually did the Chicago lottery as well, which I didn't get into that one. And I was like, damn, these lotteries stink. And then
They're hard. And I feel like they got harder with COVID because the races shut down for a year or two. Yeah. And then everybody deferred. And so that made it harder to get in. So yeah.
Exactly. And then there's, of course, the option of just like Chicago, raising money for charity. I think it's a little bit more than Chicago. I don't know the exact amount. I think it depends on the charity and when you do it. I think like the longer you wait, it kind of goes up in price. Yeah. But like probably like 2,000 or 3,000 you got to raise. So
Yeah.
there's some ways, but who knows? What I've been hearing is some people who've been doing really, really well on like TikTok and Instagram, they're like getting into races just by having that big following presence. I heard someone getting into Boston like that. So, that might be a way for you to get into down the line. Who knows?
Yeah, if I find the right person to ask, I certainly will wave the following in front of them. Can I
Yeah.
get in?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And before I let you off here, Cynthia, where can people find you? Give the whole name, because obviously anyone who listens, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who want to check out your content and everything.
Yeah, I am Cynthia J. Wheeler, both on Instagram and on TikTok. So easy to find, Cynthia J. Wheeler. And I'm in both places.
Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing episode. It was so nice meeting you. So nice getting to learn about all your experiences, like I said. And what goes around comes around. If you need anything in the future, I'm just a TikTok message away or an Instagram
Awesome.
away. And I really hope we can stay connected for the long term.
Yeah, totally agree. Thanks so much for reaching out. I was psyched to do this.